Many, if not most, takeover bids commence with an approach to the target company by a bidder. Normally it's in writing and it's expressed to be indicative, non-binding, preliminary, and it's usually highly conditional. It's conditional on things like doing due diligence, being satisfied about the due diligence, sometimes conditional on financing, further internal approvals. And when these letters are received by a target company, an immediate question arises for the directors: should they announce that to the stock exchange? The stock exchange rules require a company to make immediate disclosure of all price-sensitive information. There's an exception if the information is confidential, is part of a negotiation, and a reasonable person would not expect it to be disclosed. There was some uncertainty a few years ago about what this exactly meant in this context. So the stock exchange came out with a new rule. They amended their old rule last year in 2013, making it clear that they did not expect target companies to put out an announcement when they received such an approach. But even though they changed that rule, there was still a lot of uncertainty about whether or not companies would actually do that. David Jones received an approach from Myer for merger equals last August. They didn't disclose it. And in fact, it was only made public in February this year, after there was a lot of speculation about other things to do with David Jones, and that approach from Myer was then finally made public. So obviously David Jones was comfortable not disclosing the approach. The next example I'll give you also relates to David Jones because, as you'd know, there's currently a scheme of arrangement proposal from Woolworths of South Africa. Well, Woolworths apparently approached David Jones several months prior to reaching an agreement. They conducted due diligence. There was no disclosure at all until there was a definitive agreement. So the board of David Jones was obviously comfortable not making any announcement at that time. Another example is Treasury Wine Estates. Treasury received an approach from KKR in about mid-April, and that was also expressed to be confidential, non-binding, preliminary, indicative. It was conditional, and the board of Treasury Wines decided to work through that. They held discussions with KKR, but they didn't disclose it at the time. They eventually were forced to disclose it because KKR approached a number of shareholders to try to hurry along the process, and once Treasury became aware of that, they were concerned that confidentiality had been lost, and so they immediately came out with an announcement saying they had received this approach and also that they had rejected the approach. So that's a second one. So the directors in Treasury Wines and in David Jones were both comfortable not to disclose things. Other companies have disclosed more promptly, and Goodman Field is an example of that, as is SAI, and there's a number of other companies that have done that. So it's really a matter of judgment for the board of directors. What should a company do though? It's a matter for judgment and should be determined case by case. Normally, in my experience, a company is better off not disclosing something until it's pretty concrete. Premature disclosure will have a dramatic impact on the share price and will create enormous volatility. It'll also create a lot of uncertainty for staff and customers in the company and can be very destabilising, particularly when a transaction may not eventuate. On the other hand, sometimes disclosing early is the right thing to do, and you would do that, for instance, if you thought that the bidder was going to make its own announcement, or you thought there's a serious risk that the bidder was going to leak the fact that they'd approached you, because in that case, you wouldn't want to be seen to be on the back foot, you'd want to be on the front foot. And disclosure may also have the advantage for the company of getting more interest in that company, putting the company in play and maybe attracting other bidders. And that might be something you'd consider if you thought that control of the company was going to pass.